We are live now.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I hope I am audible to you, and welcome to the webinar series by SHM Bringing Cybersecurity and Security Practices in Court. On behalf of SOCHAM and from Microsoft, my name is Deepak Talwar. I am the National Security Officer for Microsoft India and the co-chairman of SOCHAM National Council on Cybersecurity. A very, very warm welcome to all of you in this digital world and virtual community to start with such a critical topic on cyber hygiene and security practices. Just to set the tone of today's session in 1.5 hours with distinguished guest Lieutenant General Pant with us as our chief guest, Aviram Adzava, Alexander Segar, we have Dr. Niranjan, the founder for SOCHAM and the Hiranandani Group. So I would just take a minute to take you through to set the tone of today's sessions. In the last few weeks, all around the world of us changing, and we have seen living through unprecedented times. I'm sure we all get together. And the need of the hour to keep everyone around safe while ensuring the business also continues is not an easy task for all of us who are on the call, and even all of you who are listening to us. Let me tell you, it's not just about COVID-19 as of today. It's also the trends, the disturbing trends which we see in increasing cyber threats, the right adoption of the applications to be secure, the weak security practices to be improved, and obviously the lack of security awareness. And this is one starting mode from today to share our views, have our chief guest share our views for Government of India, see the global perspective, and try to exchange and build that as a series. Without further ado, I would pass on to Dr. Niranjan Hiranandani to take on and welcome address for the guests and the speakers. Dr. Niranjan, over to you.
Thank you very much, Lieutenant General Rajesh Pant of the National Cyber Security Coordinator for the Government of India. Welcome, sir. Mr. Aviram Adzaba, Executive Director, International Cooperation of the Israel National Cyber Directorate. Welcome, sir. Mr. Alexander Segar, Executive Secretary of Cybergram Convention Committee. Mr. Venkat Krishnapur, our Vice President of McAfee Software, and of course our own Mr. Deepak Talwar, the co-chairman who was speaking over here. My friends, what an important time to have this webinar. A new methodology of communication, a change which has taken place. We're all sitting in our homes and still being able to arrange these conferences. It's a paradigm which I think is going to make a difference of every activity pre-COVID and post-COVID. I think this is a major change which is going to happen in the world. We have been communicating in the last couple of weeks on various platforms. And every week almost, I get a message, I get an email, I get a communication, which tells me that the platform which I'm using is grossly unsafe. You have to do a lot of things in order to improve your security of communications and every other activity that you may be doing. I am also told that even the Government of India has now set up a level of recommendations on what should be cyber security on some of these platforms. And the multiple platforms have got different advantages and disadvantages. I also run 17 colleges, 8 schools in the city of Mumbai. We have 45,000 students just in colleges, 16,000 students in schools. All the communications have now been put on online, and almost 25,000 students just of one set of colleges is now put on online teaching and coaching. We are now talking about online examinations, and all communications and meetings are being done on this new platform. Gentlemen, it is extremely important to understand security concerns in such a position. We work within our corporate endeavor. We work interactive with government on a continuing basis. we do educational systems, and we have corporate endeavors which are continuously using this platform. Cybercrime is something which is going to be affecting each and every one of us. Earlier, it could have been few of us who were affected. Hence, ASSOCHAM is very, very pleased with this setting up of this webinar, which will bring us into a clarity as to what is the way forward. What are the best ways in which we can do? How can we interact to give the best practices to the country? What is it that makes things work out for us? How do we communicate all this, not only to our members, not only to society, not only to companies, not only to government, but in each and every sector of the society? So, my gentlemen, you have a very huge responsibility on your shoulders in order to take this country forward. After we get all the information collected after this program, we shall represent this to the Government of India through various platforms that we have been given. And we are very, very pleased that this will be taken forward with you. I have an unfortunate problem that I have to drop out from this event, and I want to take permission from all of you to record it so that I can have a look at it later on. I play because I have another interaction of webinar which is going on with the Government of India. But I thought it proper to drop in and just greet all of you and communicate this message on behalf of ASSOCHAM and all its members. You must be aware that more than 4.5 lakh small and medium and large enterprises are members of ASSOCHAM directly and indirectly. So we will all benefit from you and the country at large. Thank you very much for this participation. Extremely grateful to all of you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Niranjan, for your time and welcome address. Once again, on behalf of ASSOCHAM and for the organization, we welcome all these speakers. So just to start with the next address, I would request if Mr. Venkat Subramaniam Krishnapur, who is the Vice President and Managing Director of McAfee Software, if he's online, to start. Mr. Venkat, if you're around. Okay, while he joins in, I would just paucity of the time and making sure for the audience to hear us on time. I would request Mr. Alexander Sager, Executive Secretary, Cyber Convention Committee, and Head of Cybercrime Program Office, Council of Europe. Mr. Alexander, welcome, and we would like to hear your point of view and your views, what's happening on the global perspective on building cyber hygiene. Over to you, Alexander.
Thank you, Deepak. Regards to everyone from Strasbourg in France, where we're also in lockdown, like most people around the world, I believe. It's a great opportunity to participate in this webinar. We have been cooperating with ASSOCHAM for the last 13 years. We started in 2007. And now that we have invented webinars, we will be able to cooperate much more frequently, and I will come at least virtually much more often to India. The key message I want to bring across is that cyber hygiene, cybersecurity, awareness, prevention are extremely important. But we also need, in addition to that, an effective criminal justice response. We need to have criminal justice authorities to engage in full cooperation, to detect, investigate, attribute, and prosecute cyber offenses, and to bring to justice those who exploit the current corona pandemic for their own criminal purposes. So this is my key message. And why is this important? I believe that humankind has never ever been more reliant on computer systems as now during the COVID crisis. And I think this webinar is also a proof of that. People check online for reliable information on the virus and how to protect themselves. They do teleworking to ensure business continuity. People are all asked to practice social distancing, but then they communicate via via computer systems, mobile phones, computers, and so on, to mitigate the impact of social distancing. People rely on computers to carry out research, to find cures and vaccinations against the coronavirus, and so forth. However, because of this reliance, malicious actors have lots of opportunities to exploit these vulnerabilities that come with the massive use of information technology. Examples are phishing campaigns and malware distribution to seemingly genuine websites, or documents providing information or advice. There's ransomware shutting down also medical, scientific, or other health-related facilities, including laboratories where vaccines are developed. There are attacks against critical infrastructure or international organizations like the World Health Organization. Individuals are targeted through ransomware to extract that, claiming to provide genuine information on COVID-19 in order then to extract payments. Fraud schemes defrauding individuals who are looking for information, vaccines, protective equipment, and so on. But also governments are tricked into fraudulent situations where they're then purchasing goods. And in a number of countries, including Germany, where I am from, which is across the border, which I cannot reach because the borders are closed, has also recently put available online applications for government grants for enterprises that are in economic difficulties. And now there are phishing sites where criminals are intercepting information to then return the grants to their own accounts. And then, of course, there's a lot of misinformation through trolls and fake news media accounts to create panic and so on. This is a problem globally. It's also a problem in India. And yes, we need to be extra cautious and reinforce security measures, but we also need a criminal justice response. We need to have full cooperation globally among criminal justice authorities. We need to prosecute offenders and bring them to justice. Many states around the world, India among them, have legislation that criminalizes the type of attacks committed against and by means of computers, also in connection with COVID-19. So criminal justice authorities have the laws, but they also now need to apply them in this crisis. And countries and authorities need to cooperate internationally because often the offenders are abroad or the evidence is abroad. We have been, as you know, that we have been working with Azerbaijan for many years. We have, with the Budapest Convention on Cybercrime, an international framework in place that permits cooperation. We have now 65 states parties. However, we also have to keep in mind that the current corona crisis will not be, unfortunately, the last global crisis. There will be other crises that follow once we have this under control. And it's therefore also clear that we need additional solutions to address future crises. And this also applies to the criminal justice side. We need to have more capacity building for criminal justice authorities, but we also need to have the possibility for immediate cooperation in emergencies. We are currently negotiating a new protocol to the Budapest Convention. And a number of the measures that we are drafting these days are measures to permit instant cooperation with other parties in urgent and emergency situations. So you can obtain evidence and identify offenders without any delay, including direct cooperation with platforms, internet service providers in other jurisdictions. This is very important. We are currently in an emergency situation where governments need to take exceptional measures, and these measures also interfere with the rights of individuals. This is unavoidable. However, it is important that such measures are limited to what is absolutely necessary, and that these measures are also limited in time and are applied only as long as necessary. So we don't want to be in a situation where, when the virus is gone, some of these measures and general surveillance measures will remain. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexander. Thank you for bringing that global perspective, some of the enforcements, and very rightly pointed out there's a situation pro-COVID and then the post-COVID, which needs to have a larger view, including some of the practices. We will get back on the questions once it is posed by the team and the audience. I would now like to move on with Mr. Venkat. Mr. Venkat Subramaniam Krishnapur, are you live now?
Hey, can you hear me?
We can, maybe a little louder, we can.
Yeah, and is someone projecting the deck? I'm depending on Varun's team to project the deck at the moment, please.
Yes, please.
Venkat sir, I am
Just
putting your presentation on.
Yeah.
While the
So,
presentation, Mr. Venkat, allow me a minute just to introduce Mr. Venkat Krishnapur. We are privileged to have him here today on the webinar session. Thank you, Venkat. Mr. Venkat is a Vice President and Managing Director of McAfee Software India, one of the largest cybersecurity organizations, of the top cybersecurity organizations. I'm sure we will have a good view from McAfee. Over to you, Venkat.
thank you very much. Also thank ASOCAM for and the timing couldn't have been better. As I kind of think through what we've been going through over the last few days, this is a situation that I don't believe any of us anticipated. It is so unprecedented, so unexpected, and the kind of lives that we've now had to lead over the last few days, I think, is extremely telling statement of what we're going through because of the coronavirus situation. And let me look at it also from a digital standpoint at this time, and give you a sense of what our McAfee labs. We have our brilliant set of engineers and researchers who have been looking at some of the data, and then what I will do is quickly walk you through some of that data so that it gives you a sense of what we are seeing. I will also talk about some of the other things that the cyber criminals are trying to do, what sectors they're trying to attack, and then I'll also talk about the working from home. And working from home is like the new norm, and there are definitely a whole bunch of risks that get exposed because of that environment. And I'll quickly kind of try and cover what those risks are and how we remediate ourselves. Can we move to the third slide, please? So I hope you're able to see the chart that I currently have on the screen. And I think if you look at the headline, there's nothing more telling from a story perspective. We've seen a 500% increase in COVID-related spam mails in March. And why is that important? Because we have these spam emails going to millions of people, and these are weaponized with Trojans, with depending on the links that you click, depending on the applications that you might download. And you can see the kind of malware that we're beginning to see. Most of these, like when you classify them, really fall into three categories. You have ransomware, you have password stealers, and you have the bots. And today, for sure, we're seeing a significant amount of activity. Certainly in March, when you compare it with January, you can see the kind of spikes that we've seen. The important thing here to note is spam is really the most prevalent way of getting into your systems. Cyber criminals use this the most to get into your endpoints. It could be your laptop, it could be your phone, it could be your tablet. And what we are seeing for sure is definitely we are seeing these Trojans and these weaponized emails that have gone up significantly. And if you move to the next slide, you will see the kind of malware that we are being exposed to. What you see here on your screen right now is a mail that has been sent from one of the so this is a CDC mail, and this is loaded with malware, and it has Emotet or the Ferrite malwares, which are essentially password stealers. and they are, once you click on the link or download in this case, you're downloading the attachment, you're going to get infected. The other thing that you're also seeing on the screen is a snapshot of the ransomware attacks that we have also seen. And you can see, depending on what kind of malware you've downloaded or clicked, you can end up with a variety of attacks. If you move to this next screen, I think that's a very important screen to look at as well, because here, look at, I think this is a significant chart that tells us how COVID specific URLs, and we're talking about people having COVID in their URLs, having COVID or Corona in their content in the websites. You can see that we started with Jan with barely 1 to 4, close to about single-digit numbers that we're talking about, and look at where we are, and in the end of March, and we've seen a 40,000. So it's really spiked significantly, and I just have to call out, this is only a partial representation of our GTI telemetry. So we actually believe that the impact is much higher. Now, let me quickly switch to the next topic, and this is about the different kinds of sectors that are targeted, right? I think I heard the previous speakers speak about the different types of sectors that are, and depending on the kind of usage that our users have, you have different types of attacks. But significantly, what you see are really 3 areas where most of the malware attacks are happening. One is healthcare, the second is banking, and the third is education. And I think the reasons are pretty obvious. Today, people are seeking solace. They're looking for solutions on the screens, on their webs, visiting websites. They're looking for, PPEs or, the personal protection equipment. They're looking for blood. They're looking for cures. And, they're clicking on, they're definitely visiting a lot of sites. And we're seeing that, I showed you the previous slide. We have a significant number of websites that are definitely a source of the problem. The other thing that is happening when you look at it, why is the financial sector, causing issues? So today you've seen the United States government has released close to $2 trillion of aid to people in the US. Likewise, our own Prime Minister has announced aid to over 2 lakh crore rupees. And what criminals are doing is they're using this information in the form of a spam email and saying, hey, please click on this link to get your money that your Prime Minister has announced. Or in the US, the president has announced, for example. And we're seeing the same thing with loans, we're seeing with insurance, and typically the finance, they're using the financial benefits and attacking people with malware. Now, why is education the next one? And it's pretty obvious today. All our kids are at home. They have to study, they have to connect, and they have to learn. And the education segment is under attack because the kids are now connecting to the networks, and they're trying to click, get to links so that they're able to learn their maths and their physics and everything else. So these are the primary areas of attack. And again, and let me switch to the next slide. If you look at where we are with respect to the different types of devices that they're attacking all types of devices. If I can see if you're able to move to the next slide, that will be helpful. So look at, this is an example of how the mobiles are being attacked. And again, with the keyword Corona, and what this does, this particular malware, which is the Corona safety mask.app, takes over your internet, takes over the full control, and then creates extra sockets, reads data from the victim's device, and sends SMSs to a host of people based on harvesting of your address book. Switch to the next slide. And I think here is another example of how malicious campaigns are happening around the personal protection equipment. And you can't get and these are specifically examples that have that we have been able to unearth at McAfee through our research team, which is the advanced threat research team. And you can clearly see how the masks and how other pieces of equipment that people need today are being advertised. And actually, I might just use a second to look at it. If you're able to look at some of the data, this is a way you actually identify a phishing mail. It is misspelled, it has got bad English, etc. Professional websites don't do that. I kind of just use this example so that you also learn how to identify a phishing mail, because typically mails are badly constructed. Let's quickly move to the next thing, which is a topic that's really close to my heart, which is about fake news. And today we are seeing a huge amount of fake news around the disease. And nothing could be more devastating than what I saw a couple of weeks back, where in Iran there was fake news about people drinking. The fake news was really about toxic methanol that purportedly would cure the coronavirus disease. And there were thousands of people who saw that fake news, assumed it was true, and drank this toxic methanol. And we've had over 300 people die. So we're looking at a situation here today where fake news and these viruses are significant, causing, not damage just to your devices and your data, but your lives. And today in the dark web, you have blood for sale. Antibodies. People read about how antibodies could potentially help cure a person who's been previously infected and then has recovered, and his blood is up for sale. And you see this in the dark web. So you see all of this. So now let's quickly switch over to the next topic, which is really trying to understand the whole work from home situation. And what this slide really depicts is, it's important for us to understand two things. One is the user, which is us. We are now with our families. We have our endpoints. We have different types of endpoints. Like I said, your phone, your laptop, your iPad, and on the other side, you also have the corporate network. And look at the environment today, and it's important for you to understand what the environment is, because then you will be able to understand the kind of protective measures that you need to take. Like, for example, the user may connect to the network without proper authentication. That is bad. Today, the users typically can also connect to Dropboxes and to Google Drive, and then access data, because they're using the machine for personal purposes as well as for corporate data. They're not connecting via VPN, for example. And you have both unprotected devices at home. You have family sharing devices, and they're downloading stuff for education. Kids don't know what they're downloading. Your internet is essentially directly accessed, oftentimes without a VPN or multi-factor authentication. And then, the other thing is, when you're connecting to Google and when you're connecting to Dropbox and other things, you're connecting directly. You're getting directly to the cloud, bypassing your enterprise infrastructure completely. And so these pose multiple risks. And when you look at from the corporate side, people also need to be aware that the kind of tools that people are using today have inherent vulnerabilities, and unless the right patch is used, you could be compromised on your servers. And what you're seeing now in the next slide are simple hacks that people have been able to do in VPN servers, in ADCs, in two-factor authentication of the VPN. They've been able to find vulnerabilities. Zoom, Confluence, Slack, we've seen. So it's important for the administrators now to be more aware of the kind of risks that they have with the tools that people are using to telecommute today. And then when you look at the RDP vulnerabilities, as well as like Deja Blue, Bluegate, etc., this is a handful. So what is the message that I'm trying to give you? The message is really, you need to have the right set of protocols in place, both at the endpoints as well as on your servers. And if you move to the next slide, you can see the different types of controls. It's about secure configuration, strong passwords, keeping your software layers protected, VPNs, ensuring you have DLP, which is data leakage protection, so your data at rest and your data in motion. And you're using SSLs, so you're essentially ensuring that there is encryption. And so all of this on the endpoint side, and certainly on the when you're looking at it from a policy perspective, all of these need to be implemented in both the SMBs as well as on the enterprise. So if you can quickly switch to two slides and click on the what are the 5 P's of cyber safety, and if you click on each, so if you keep clicking, you will see each one pop up. So so it's important for you to realize that if I were to summarize everything, it's an issue. You need to have strong passwords with P, beware of phishing, a digital discipline from people, and then latest patches, and then of course measured privileges. And you work with the you're working on the basis of zero trust, which means that within the organization you ensure that users are getting the right level of privileges. And when you switch to the next slide, we are talking about let me quickly summarize some of the things from on the work from home side. Sensible virtual distancing is extremely clear as well. We talk about social distancing all the time, but it's so important to make sure that you also have social virtual distancing as well. It's about your password hygiene, using multi-factor authentication. It's about stopping, thinking, and clicking. Remember, the other point that I said, recognize hackers target endpoints. If you're compromised, your corporate data can be compromised. And therefore, make sure your endpoints have anti-malware and data protection software. Make sure that if you're, since you connect to the cloud as well, like I said, Google and all of these, then it's important to have a CASB so that it's the policies are set and they're managed so that your corporates know what data is flowing to the cloud. Of course, encryption, and then using safe tunnels to go to the office. The last slide is really about the links that we have. We have a number of links from McAfee that includes my own blogs where I have spoken over 3 or 4 weeks back about the different types of risks that we see, and where you need to be careful. In addition to that, you have a number of blogs from McAfee itself. So with this, let me use this opportunity once again to thank each one of you, and thank you ASSOCHAM for giving me this opportunity and giving a perspective of what we as McAfee think about what the situation overall is, from a cyber security standpoint today.
Thank you. Thank you, Venkat. I hope I'm audible.
You are, yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Venkat. Excellent things to present during the cyber hygiene. It's not just about 20 seconds of washing hand. It's also about are we giving 20 to 30 seconds of to ourselves to identify, are we doing better things to make our cyber hygiene practices, starting with very, very larger context you put in. We will take the question later on. But to summarize, the 500% increase in attacks during COVID times, the sectors of healthcare, banking, education, as some of these sectors, it's unfortunate that we are seeing multi-fold attacks going on those sectors, and we all have to work together to identify the outcomes as well. Moving on with the paucity of time, I would like to welcome Mr. Aviram Adzava. Aviram, am I audible? Are you on screen?
Okay,
And
yes, I'm here.
I hope it's audible to the audience as well. Hi, audience, just to make sure, pump your in, is everything okay? You all are, I hope you can hear us well. I am now quickly moving to Alexander Zaba. Welcome, Aviram. Welcome, Aviram, Executive Director,
Hi.
International Cooperation, Israel National Cyber Director. Welcome to you. And now, with due respect of time, passing on to you to share your point of view on the global perspective. Aviram.
Thank you very much. Can you see my slide also?
Yes, Rohit. Can you put the slides for the audience and for us to see?
Yes, it's on. Do you see it? I'm listening. Can you see it now?
1 second, sir. Just sorting now. Just give a second, please.
Yep.
Okay. No problem.
Yes, we can see your screen now.
Excellent. And you can hear me also. Can you?
For the better band, just putting ourselves on mute and maybe off from video to see your screen better for all the audience on the call. Thank you, everyone. Over to you.
Okay, so thank you very much for inviting me to this conference. And thank you very much for the previous lectures, because they put very nicely the problem. What I'm going to present as part of the Israeli National Cyber Directorate is our approach to dealing with this COVID-19 crisis. One slide about who we are. We are a government organization under the Prime Minister responsible for two main things. One is the defense of the Israeli cybersphere against cyber attacks, starting from critical infrastructure all the way to the men in the street. And for leadership, promoting Israel as a leader in cybersecurity. The main concepts will be industry and manpower. Situation in Israel in a nutshell. Borders are almost closed, mainly goods are being transferred. Population is quasi-quarantined. I'm right now working from home. A lot of people are working from home. Market activity is down to 15–30% of the regular daily business, and the health sector is coping. We are already in almost more than a month in this situation, and we are starting now to think about building the exit strategy. We are already seeing the graphs becoming better, you know, not more exponential graphs, but becoming linear and maybe even flattening, and we are starting to build our exit strategy. This is the macro situation in Israel. COVID-19 transformed the way Israel's cyber domain is being used. First of all, decentralized workspace, as is all over the world, a lot of teleworking, a lot of conference calls and meetings via this media. Remote studying, my kid is right now sitting in a room near me, studying in high school, and my daughter is studying in the university in another room in this house. A lot of people are doing their buying and selling through the internet, so the consumption is changing in Israel. A rapid response to acquiring new technologies and assuming them into their daily work and entertainment. A lot of new medical IoTs implemented in the medical realm, and changes in privacy habits. And a lot of debate in Israel whether how should we change the privacy habits to cope and deal with these epidemics. It's actually a crisis, not in the cyber domain, but a lot of dilemmas and a lot of work in the cyber domain. It's like as if we jumped 15 years into the future, but we didn't plan for it. And the attack surface is suffering from it, and our responsibility is to make sure that we cope very fast. What are we doing? First of all, the INCD, our organization, was declared as an essential organization, like the police, like the health industry, and we operate fully. We split teams in order to be able to have business continuity if some people are infected, but we are full operational. More than that, the cybersecurity industry was declared as an emergency critical sector. And this is to make sure that we are making those very fast changes in our networks, in our software, in our way we are doing our business, but in a secure way. So we need all those CISOs, and we need all this industry working to make sure that we do the things in the right way. A lot of cooperation with all the relevant ministries, of course, the health ministry, but also the transportation ministry and the security establishment. A lot of tasks are being granted now to the police and to the military, and we're working very closely with them. Cybersecurity is a crucial part of a pandemic cabinet, which is working on how to deal with this pandemic, and our role is to make sure that we are doing it in a cyber-secure way. More efforts. Critical infrastructure. We have very close guidance to our critical infrastructure. This is true on the day-to-day situation. It is more true now when those critical infrastructures want to make changes to the networks, want to have people work from far away, and we have to make sure that they do it in a secure way, not only for now, to assure business continuity of the critical infrastructure now, but also after the pandemic to make sure that they are not infiltrated. Supply chain and supply value. A lot of mapping of those ones, a lot of providing them intel and vulnerability checks to make sure that they are secure. This is something the government is putting to many organizations that we didn't do it before the crisis. But now we understand that this is a weak point, you know, the weakest link. So we have to invest our efforts to make sure that they receive the right intel so they can secure themselves. Critical processes. There are new critical processes like the import from the ports. You know, Israel is like an island politically, so we rely a lot on import via the air and via the sea. So we have to make sure that our supply chain continues to provide medicines and continues to provide food. Our health sector have many new critical processes like for fighting corona, and we have to map those, guide them how to make sure that they are secure. We provide a lot of resilience checks to hospitals and to food providers and to many organizations to make sure that their situation is good, and we are monitoring the different relevant sectors. This is done on a daily basis and on a weekly basis. Last but not least, the market is moving to remote working, and we heard about the threats in the previous lecture. We are providing best practices and guidelines how to make sure that our market is doing this remote working in a relatively secure way. We are specifically helping our health sector, working closely with the Ministry of Health, working closely with hospitals and doing resilience checks to hospitals and other health organizations, doing a lot of effort on value chain. We are buying a lot of respirators. We have labs that are doing COVID-19 research, and they are all attacked. And we have to make sure that we provide them the right security knowledge to make sure that they do it in a secure way. New software applications and tools are provided to the market by many organizations. An example is Hamagen. Hamagen is an application by the Ministry of Health that every citizen can load it to his own cellular, and he can understand whether he was in close contact with a patient or with somebody that was found out to be infected with COVID-19, and he can put himself into self-quarantine. This application was checked by us to make sure that it is cyber secure. It was also checked for privacy and many other aspects. It is an open source. It is in GitHub, so a lot of comments from the community to mature it. And this is also an effort that we are doing for various different applications for the general public, but also for hospitals and for health organizations. This coronavirus made a lot of new startups investigate in research, development, and implementation of new capabilities, of new tools, and we have to make sure that all of those are secure by design, so when they are implemented, they are not being the attack vector for the next attack. Marketplace. If health was the main priority, the second priority is helping the rest of the market. And we are doing active screening of our whole market in a daily basis, and we are providing companies with vulnerabilities that we found, and we are helping them to close them. We understand that organizations are now in a very difficult situation, and they have to deal with their daily business, and not all of them have the ability to do the right cybersecurity. So if we can do something to help them, this is something that we are doing for them. Of course, everything that we are doing is free of charge. Awareness campaigns, a lot of awareness campaigns. We are providing a lot of best practices to the market to enable them to work with Zoom in a secure way, to work remotely in a secure way, to do their shopping in a secure way. We also launched 2 weeks ago, no, last week, Marketplace. Marketplace is an arena. It is located in our website, and it is a place where cybersecurity companies can explain what they are doing and provide demos and their applications, either free of charge or at a cost. And this is a one-stop shop for companies and the market to find solutions for cyber problems. What we do is we make like a due diligence. We make sure that those companies are real companies and they have real products. It's not certification of the products, but it is assuring that those companies have a real product and the market can use it. In a week already, we have more than 85 companies that requested to be a marketplace, and we are receiving all the time more and more applications. Incident response related to COVID-19. I will not elaborate on this one, but there are a lot of attacks on our marketplace, similar to what was presented in the previous presentation, and we are having our incident response teams going to the ones that are relevant to our critical assets and to our critical processes and to fighting COVID-19. Information sharing, very important, and specifically with our international partners. This is a great opportunity to say something about our relationship with India, which is very warm, both with General Pant and his organization, but also with the NTRO on critical infrastructure and with CERT India. And we have very good cooperation, very good exchange of information, and it is very important because this epidemic is worldwide. Attackers come from all over. Best practices are developed everywhere, and to provide time to market for our market, it's very important to engage with the international community. Last but not least, cybersecurity in this pandemic is an ongoing effort. We are learning as we go, and we are improving ourselves all the time, and we are sharing everything we have, of course, with the Israeli community, but also things that we think are beneficial for the international community. We have them on our site in English, and also we are enabling via VC and webinars cooperation with many instances around the world. So thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you very much for the cooperation we have with India, and hopefully we will be able to say it face to face in the future.
Thank you. Thank you, Avram. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can.
Yes, I can. This is Venkat. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Avram, for bringing that global perspective and a lot of best practices. It's something like when you said 15 years we moved into the future and without preparation. It was not a ready thing as of today, which we forecasted like any other thing, being well prepared. Talking about critical infrastructure, cybersecurity guidance for remote working. You brought up a very crucial point about process of risk management plans, and not just using the applications and platform, but how secure they are, how the value chain brings in. So thank you for bringing that perspective. I would like to request now General Pant, Lieutenant General Pant. I don't know if you can see them on the video now.
You can see them.
Okay, Lieutenant General Pant, am I audible to you?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Oh, yes, great. Thank you, General Pant. We had a very good input from Alexander. Venkat gave some of the statistics while setting the platform by Dr. Niranjan, followed by Avram, who got the best practices of Israel and how, as a threat, it's not just nation's threat. So before passing on to you, security is everyone's responsibility, General Pant, and we have been learning a lot from you, while hearing a lot from Government of India. I would request to have your point of view for all of us to share. Over to you, Lieutenant General Pant, our National Cyber Security Secretariat Coordinator, as our chief guest. General Pant, for your point of view.
Well, good afternoon to all the viewers, and thank you, Deepak and ASSOCHAM, for having me here on a subject of current relevance and great importance. I've been making my notes, by the way, on the previous speakers, and let me compliment all three of them, Alexander, Venkat, and Aviram, on raising some really interesting issues and sharing their inputs with us. Let me start from what the world is saying about how India has faced this crisis. And the way things have happened so far, it's been it's going to be a case study on a whole of a nation approach, if I may say so. We were one of the first movers, as all of you are aware, in tackling this crisis. And right from the clarity of the Prime Minister to the efficient and coordinated manner in which the central government and the state governments functioned, and the LEAs, and most importantly, the general public and the private sector. It's just been efficiency all the way, which is what has brought us to where we are. And we hope that this crisis gets over soon and is controlled at the earliest. Now, having said that, the threat has been highlighted by Venkat very well. Some of you may recall that the moment the Prime Minister had announced the contribution for the PM CARES Fund, within, I think, a couple of hours, there were 12 fake UPI sites which came up on similar sounding names. It was PM CARES or PM CARE or PM CARE 5, PM CARES ending in S. And I must compliment our CERT, that is the Computer Emergency Response Teams, and the I4C, the organization that we have created in the Ministry of Home Affairs, that is the Indian Cyber Coordination Center that handles cybercrime, that immediately got these different URLs, informed the necessary agencies, and with the help of the security agencies of the SBI and the NPCI, the NPCI is the Payment Corporation of India, as well as the RBI, all these sites were closed down and the money was saved. So as far as the threat is concerned in India, we have the attacks are taking place. We have consistently over 2019 being amongst the top 3 cyber attack countries in the world. And the new aspect that Deepak has mentioned and others have mentioned is the work from home environment. Some people call it remote working. Remote working was always there, in fact. Some people in the recent CISA advisory, they call it teleworking. But let me spend a little bit of time on the work from home and what are the good cyber hygiene habits that one needs to inculcate. Venkat mentioned about endpoints, starting from the endpoints. See, normally in my cybersecurity talks, I start from the international scenario, then come down to the regional, the national, enterprise, and then the individual. But because of the work from home scenario, I want to start from the endpoint. And in my sense of understanding, the endpoint is not this. or the desktop, the endpoint is here. This is the ultimate endpoint. Because unless we are sure about the seriousness of cybersecurity, unless we know the loss it may cause, the harm that our data loss may cause, what happens if we lose the money by doing wrong things, unless that seriousness is here, I mean, the rest of it is gets diluted. So the first thought that I want to leave on the viewers is to gain a sense of seriousness as far as cybersecurity is concerned, because the complaints that we are getting and the crime every day, the reports that we are getting is getting more and more serious. Now, then we come to this, the smartphone and the desktops and the laptops. Now, while I find that most people have got antivirus built into their desktops and the laptops, a very small percentage puts antivirus in the mobile phones. One of the fears is that it probably slows down the phone. But let me assure you that while the architecture is different between a desktop and a mobile phone, but the advantages still remain. And the advantages are more in an Android phone because of architecture as compared to the iOS, because iOS has already some inbuilt architectural features. But the point is that something is better than nothing. And even if you, and the paid versions are very cheap. So I would recommend as a second step on the use of antivirus in mobile phones. Now, within the home, the next part is the router, your home Wi-Fi router. And I find that people have given names like, let's say Rajesh Pant's router. That is the name given to the router. You're telling the whole world, this is my home and this is my router. The password that is used is, if it's not the default password, it is very simple password. So that is the next step now that I would recommend, that please, you can see what is the type of router you've got, whether it's D-Link or Cisco or whatever, and then go to their website. Otherwise, there are standard techniques. You can do that --.1.1 IP address in your browser. Go open that table and log in as an admin and have a good password. The next thing in the house is that there are a lot of other devices these days connected. Why should your Alexa be on throughout the day? Because now you're working from home, right? Why should your surveillance camera or a doggy camera or something that you got, why should that be on now? So be careful of the other devices, the IoT devices that are there in the home, and try and switch them off if you don't need them, because those are also points through which the attacks take place. So the work from home has created now new rules for cybersecurity, which is why I'm repeating them, since the subject of the discussion was cyber hygiene. Because from the home router, you will go to a switch, which is again within the place where you're staying. Because if you were working in an enterprise, in an office, the moment you enter the office gate, after that everything has a physical security that includes the switches, etc., which are part of the enterprise network. But now from your home, from your Wi-Fi router, it is going to some optical switch close by, and from there to some other aggregator, etc. All that is in the physically open domain. So this is where the ISPs and the TSPs have to probably come in and do some extra work. And from there we go to the enterprise. If you're using a VPN, you go to the SSL VPN gateway, and this is where now the enterprise has to come in and see how they have to now modify their security system. How do you monitor so many people who are working from their homes? How do you ensure that that they are doing what they're expected to do? So these are some new cybersecurity issues that have come up as far as the good cyber hygiene is concerned and the work from home requirement is concerned. So there was a ASSOCHAM seminar about a month back in which I was comparing how this virus is so similar to our computer virus. And there are 2 or 3 more things now I have learned over the last 1 month. And one of them is that to defeat this virus, we need global cooperation. The same thing is there in computer virus. And that is what Aviram was speaking of, that unless we share our threat intelligence, and that is what Alexander also said, how do we ensure the international jurisdiction can stop these criminals? So even for the COVID, we are not wanting every nation to develop its own vaccine. There has to be cooperation in research, and then the vaccine will be developed at the earliest. The second point is that in the COVID, we've learned that it is very difficult to hermetically seal the societies. That is what we are finding. And a similar concept is there in cybersecurity. We've always been saying that the fact that you are networked and you are interconnected, people will get through. You will get infected. So the concept is to identify your core areas and protect them with whatever you have. So that is the second commonality between the COVID and this thing. And the last one is that the COVID is a zero-day virus. This is what we've been always fearing. This is what we've been always fearing in the cybersecurity field. And how do we tackle that is what we are discussing. So yeah, let me stop here and again remind you that in the Government of India, we have a very effective computer emergency response team under the Ministry of Electronics and IT. And the MHA also, as I said, has the I4C. And before I end, let me again compliment the frontline workers who are doing this excellent job in controlling the COVID, the healthcare sector. And behind them is also a second line. And the second line are the support people who sometimes are forgotten. But these are the people who are allowing this webinar to take place, the network providers, the communicators, the people who are providing the utilities and the services. We should not forget them, and I think they also deserve that without any glitch, without any breakdown, since the time this crisis has started, we have been functioning. And I must also praise the media in this. All the channels on television, we are finding are functioning without a break, with all our favorite actors and keeping us busy at home. Of course, I'm in the office, but I can make out that some new things have come out, new games, etc. are come out, and people are being kept occupied at home. So the support cadre also needs to be praised as much as the healthcare sectors. So things are under control. Let me wind up with that. Within the nation, the cyberspace is under control. The systems are working. The cybercrime cells in the states are functional. We have continuous communication with them. And as Aviram said, we are also part of the essential services. And I hope that all of you stay safe. And on that positive note, thank you very much. Jai Hind.
Thank you. Thank you, General Pant. This was overwhelming. This was eye-opener. For a minute, I would like to be your user sitting at home, General Pant. When we start from our home, as you rightly said, it's not our devices, it's not our smartphones only. It's there in the mind. I'm keeping it as one of my learning as well, and I'm sure for the audience. And you have rightly brought down, it's not just your systems, it's the router you are connected to, the physical devices, and how you are slowly connected to outside world, and making some small hygiene best practices at home, like a weak password or putting Deepak as a name, or telling our house numbers. And unfortunately, in banking, we keep all the passwords, usernames in the best view of our date of births and all good things we do. Unfortunately, that's the weakest link, called as human link, out of process technologies and people. Thank you, sir, for bringing that point of view for us and for the audience. I have a job to do to thank all of you, but representing Microsoft and putting all the would like to have 2 minutes to share with you the perspective which I have learned from various speakers. We did cover the thought process behind the cyber hygiene starts from home. There are practices which is happening from Israel as a nation state. Alexander mentioned how these needs to be a nation state vectors to be take care of it. Some of the best practices talking about the cyber COVID theme based attacks which are happening, as well as the penetration happening to the Prime Minister's fund. Unfortunately, the attacks have been increased. But let me reiterate from a Microsoft perspective as well. It's not the attacks which have been increased only. It is also the shift of their techniques to capitalize on fear, right? So I would like to bring on the concept of the attackers who are capitalizing on fear. And we have created it. So we at Microsoft are also watching it. We are pushing them back by bringing up, General Pant mentioned about the observation of being the threat intel. The more threat intel between public and private community can help us. The campaigns, if we understand, Venkat mentioned, are small bits and pieces. When you read email, it will very clearly, evidently comes up. You don't have to be a technology expert to understand what is the subject line, which is very luring, COVID-19, and this is the documentation required for the audience who are sitting at home and watching us as consumer. From the corporate perspective, I would like to bring that COVID-19 thoughts are also impacting the established firms like World Health Organization, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the Departments of Health and Organization. And that's where the practices also meets in to summarize on 4 points I would like to represent and share with you. One of these is your corporate applications and data are 100% exposed. So let's acknowledge it, and that by accepting that risk factor, we need to work on whether it is your identity, which you need to safeguard, whether it is your endpoint. Just doing endpoint at the secure systems are very important. The second point is about your corporate devices. General Pant mentioned about it. It's no longer a work confines to IT security. It's in our hand at our homes. So it's our responsibility whether putting it as security at mobile phones or up to date on the systems, and just do not join the insecure collaborations ad hoc. We need to give 20 seconds. As I said, while washing hands with the soap, you also need to give 20 seconds while connecting to the systems and making sure the basic hygienes are taken care of. The third part I would like to highlight, which is very, very important, is the employees who are handling corporate sensitive data remotely from work at their home. It's our responsibility while you're sharing those, and this also unfortunately depends upon the insecure tools and technologies which you use, especially in work from home conditions. We connect not just for video and audio. So my humble request to audience, to all of us, is you need to think it as a collaborative tool. Find out it is end-to-end encrypted. Find out the channel is secure. Find out what you're visibly seeing. Maintain your privacy. The system which you are connected is not just the applications. Even the systems, are they up to date? Are we maintaining those hygiene practices? So tools, technology, insecure. Don't just jump on quick audio, video, and start connecting to it. Even as a corporate or even as a users, consumers, SMEs who have joined us together. So with that, I would conclude. We are on 2:16. We will try, if we have questions, or we will take it later on emails within time. It's my privilege and honor to share our e-virtual first series of webinar with our National Cyber Coordinator and our guest, Lieutenant General Pant. Thank you so much for being with us today and sharing your point of view and how Government of India is being prepared and we are safe and secure. Alexander, thank you for bringing that global perspective and how Europe is being talking as a nation state. And yes, it's a nation state threat vector, and as well as how the hospitals and education and programs needs to be looked into. Venkat, thank you for bringing the statistics, the information, some of the very bright slides talking about 500%, multifold attacks have been increased. Aviram, a lot to learn, seeing the slides and what we need to think about critical infrastructure, how the CRMs, the critical nodes, which needs to be looked into, very, very separate. And it is not just about COVID-19. How are we prepared pro and post COVID-19? Very, very well done. Can't miss our President SOCHAM, Mr. Nandani, who has been brought up and set the tone. Thank you, Varun, for bringing that entire hosting this event in a full. We will continue building that as a knowledge sharing expertise all together. I would like to open and over to Rohit if there are a few questions for our speakers. We will few of them in paucity of time, and then we wrap up. Varun.
Sir, I think we are well on time. If we can take a couple of questions if we want, or probably what we can do, I have the question with me. I will give it to Varun. Varun will send it to all participants with the answers, whatever convenient to analyst.
Yes, Varun, go ahead. I think you can put some questions.
So Deepak sir, if you go to the control panel, there's a question section. You can open and check the questions shared by our participants. Till Deepak sir come back, just an announcement to all attendees. This webinar is recorded and will be posting on our YouTube channel within 24 hours from now. So if you want to check again, you can do it on our YouTube channel of SOCHAM. We have also saved all the webinar we are conducting so far. Everything is available on our YouTube channel. Also, we have created a special page of COVID-19 on our website for the updates regarding the updates released by the government, the recommendation given by SOCHAM to various ministries. If you want to view that, you can also view from our website. Over to you, Deepak sir.
Okay, I can see one or two or maybe something within the limited screen, but if any audience wants to open up or Varun, you want to put that, one of the questions is what are what are few of the best practices we can follow while we are at home as users, and especially when it is corporate world, while we have sensitive information at stake, how well we should be taking those instances to be prepared. Alexander, Aviram, would you like to give a global perspective before I come to General Pan? The question is more on our topic. What best practices you give it to as a users? General Pan covered it, but just to give you best practices and how you see corporate while they're handling sensitive information, what best practices they can follow during this COVID time.
If I may, the information working from home is still an information, and you have to secure it as if you were securing it from your office or elsewhere. So we published best practices for working from home. I assume many others publish best practices. Just follow best practices. Don't ignore them. Regarding sensitive information, again, you shouldn't use sensitive information in a non-sensitive environment without taking the right precautions. It depends on your systems, it depends on your networks. There are best practices. We published for our market, but I'm sure there are best practices in India also. Just follow best practices. Don't do it without it.
Yeah, I would say the same. When we put on our website, and maybe ASOCHAM can later on circulate the URL to participants, we publish a number of links, including on best practices, how you can secure your home when you work from home, issued by Europol, and there are many others. Exactly as Aviram said, don't ignore those practices, follow them. There are lots of them around.
So let me,
Thank you.
let me just come in here. Can you hear me?
Can hear you, General Pan. Yes.
So the first point is that the CERT IN, and I'm sure the other CERTs, they issue a lot of advisories. So please go through those advisories. They cater for all the aspects that we are talking of as to the steps. But I want to highlight the video conferencing aspects, which is also getting very popular in the COVID times. That whether you use WebEx or Zoom or Microsoft Teams or Google Meetings or Zoho or Zomo, whatever, there are standard security aspects when you're doing video conferencing, in the sense that first you call people to a waiting room. They don't straight away join the meeting. All of them come to a waiting room. Then there is a password. Then one by one you bring them onto the conference, and after the conference starts, you lock the conference. So some best practices needs to be done. Otherwise, you have these cases of Zoom bombing and people disrupting conferences and all. So people have to learn as to how to organize a secure video conference. That is one of the points I thought I must highlight. From the company point of view, and since I've had some experience as a chairman of a company also, in the new environment, we can't have board meetings the way we have normally once a quarter or whatever. The board has to meet much more frequently in video conferencing mode and discuss the risks, the new risks that have arisen and how to counter them. And finally, we must have a crisis management plan. If possible, practice it also. You see, we are seeing it in the COVID scenario that the countries which have been worst hit are the ones that actually were not prepared for it. So now that we've learned this lesson, at least let us prepare for any future crisis that may happen, at least in the cyber domain. So revise your crisis management plans, and if possible, just try and practice it so that you're not taken off guard. And these are the things I can think of at the moment as far as the best practices are concerned. Thank you.
Hi, Deepak. This is Venkat here. If I can just chime in for one more minute on this topic, is essentially, I think the biggest advice I would give to people who are working from home is to make sure that they don't fall victim to phishing, and they really stop, think, and click, and make sure their passwords are, they have multi-factor authentication, they have password hygiene, and so on and so forth. I think what General Pant ji said, what our previous speaker said, it's all absolutely valid. But I think at the very basic level, I would make sure that the vulnerabilities of the human mind, right? So I mean, when you look at the problem, it's really two things: vulnerabilities of the human mind and vulnerabilities of the machine ecosystem. So it's a man-machine vulnerability ecosystem that we're talking about. So first and foremost, I think, when you're working from home, it's important to realize that you need to have tools and you need to be smart. I think, that said, I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you, Venkat, and rightly mentioned. Thank you, General Pant, for advising on various aspects of it. I will summarize and put few points on the questions. Similarly, there are a few more questions on the same nature. How to be more sure while continuing it? But I will take one more question, which is more to do with the startup ecosystems, which are not related to cyber. I might be an e-commerce or a small startup, and we are non-cyber. How do we make sure that we continue doing what is our bread and butter and still be secure? Ideally, half of the partial answer is given. Before passing on, I'll just share a few points which Venkat mentioned, General Pant mentioned, Alexander and Aviram. It's true, while you're collaborating as a utilizing the tool, you need to have the technologies at basic best practices. As mentioned, for endpoints, you need to have that endpoint secure. When it is startups, I would say while sitting at home, suddenly you cannot build anything. That's a reality. And that is why please rely on the compute and the technologies and platform providers which are there, that while you can connect as a dumb terminal, not keeping any data to it, and remotely you will be able to connect to those systems with all data confidentiality and continue working as a startup ecosystem. Because you cannot go out, build infrastructure, validate, and then start working. And it's unfortunate during these COVID conditions for startups to miss that bus, because it's difficult from commercial aspect as well. So identity access management, multi-factor authentication, very, very important in every aspect as a user at home, and even as a corporate or sitting anywhere or doing any other meetings. Any technologies and tools you use, General Pant, I'll buy that point, has to be revalidated in terms of how stringent you are following when it is a corporate practices. Users at home may have one or two small things, but while it's a corporate, they may have a larger responsibilities at their laptops on that moment, and we would not like to be hijacked by the system and just by clicking on phishing attack. It is unfortunate that every good practices cannot be done only on the users. It also have to rely on the technologies behind that. Like when you click, something has to happen on your endpoint that advanced threat or zero-day threat or vulnerabilities are taken care of without you knowing and your intervention. So these are some of the points to the questions came in. I will just one more question. Allow me a minute. Rohit, do you see any other questions? If I don't see on screen, I do see that it's very small font. Apologies. Rohit, is it something you want to highlight? Not to miss.
Yes, we have a lot of questions. I think that the time what we have, we won't be able to answer all of them. So my suggestion, what I will do, I will pass on these questions to our IT council person, Mr. Varun Agarwal. He will prepare the answers, taking feedback from all the panelists, and then send it across to all the audience later on. I can see 25, 30 questions popping up on my screen right now.
So okay. So in paucity of time and to the speakers at different time zones being joining us, I would like to take this opportunity to give a vote of thanks. General Pant, we are obliged and appreciate your time, learning it for the end users, also for corporates, and giving perspective of government of in the stay safe, stay home COVID situation. Thank you, Lieutenant General Pant, for being with us. Alexander, appreciate your time during this time, and we will consistently make sure it is a ongoing series and sharing education. Aviram, thank you so much for bringing the global perspective from Israel. Shihir Anandaniji, thank you for being a part of the SOCHM and helping us to deliver such sessions for the audience. Thank you, Varun. Thank you, the team of SOCHM, for building that up. On behalf of Microsoft and as a co-chairman of SOCHM, I would like to conclude this session with one motivation thing. As I started with, security is everyone's responsibility, and I firmly believe it starts from our homes as well. We'll leave it here, think through it, start some best practices, and we will come back on the next session. We will wrap it here. Thank you, everyone. Take care. Goodbye. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.